Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today is acclaimed screenwriter, director, producer, and now debut novelist Gregory Poirier to talk about his new espionage thriller, A Thousand Cuts. Welcome to the show, Gregory.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So happy to have you here. And I have to put you on the spot right off the bat here.
Okay.
What was harder, writing this novel or
hmm
directing Tomcats?
Wow. Well, the two things happened about a quarter of a century apart, so I
Yeah.
definitely have a lot more wisdom now.
Yeah.
No, I think writing is my true skill. So I think,
Yeah.
writing is easier than doing. I mean, it's not easy, obviously. It's hard work, but it's
Right.
easier than doing anything else because it's the thing that I do. Yeah.
hmm
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen so many interviews with directors and the sheer amount of work that goes into, I mean, even before they, start filming the
Yeah.
movie or show or whatever is just immense. And there's just seems like there's so many moving parts and so many decisions you have to make on a day-to-day basis. And so I was just trying to have a nice little fun icebreaker there, but
No,
it
it is.
really is
It's a fun
amazing.
job. It was, and that one in particular was a lot of fun because it was a silly comedy, and I had a really good cast and crew around me, and we were kind of experimenting a lot. There was a lot
Yeah.
of ad-libbing going on, and just suggestions coming from every side about what might be funny. So
Yeah.
it was fun. I mean, it was hard work, and by the end
Yeah.
of it, I was exhausted, but it
How
was.
long did it take you to film it?
We shot it in 40 days.
40 days. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, which
Is
is pretty
now
good. Pretty
I
good
was going to
scheduling,
say,
you
all
know.
right, that seems, I've heard, folks, well, I've heard, 20 days, but it seems like that 40 to 60, is it? 40 to 90
Yeah,
might
I mean,
be around
this
average.
was a, there wasn't a lot of special effects. There wasn't that
Okay.
kind of stuff going on. It was just people, interacting basically
Okay.
in funny situations. So it was a, it was possible to do it in that amount of time. And I had a young family at the time, and Joe Roth, whose studio it um, was nice enough to let me shoot in LA because that way I could
Mm,
be around my family. I had
that's nice.
two very young children at the time, so
Yeah. Very cool. All right,
yeah.
great. All right. Well, we know all of your creative endeavors, as I mentioned in the introduction. What else would you like to share about yourself?
There's not a lot to say really. I'm born and raised in Hawaii. I've raised four humans who are out there doing their thing now in the world.
Great, great.
With for better or worse, with two different moms. This is Hollywood after all.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but both wonderful women, and that's about it. I'm a writer. That's my personality. That's my whole gig. I like
Great.
writing.
All right. Well, what can you tell us about A Thousand Cuts? Great title, by the way. I don't know if that was your
Thank you.
idea or if that was your publisher's, but what can you tell us about this story?
Well, it's interesting. I first developed it, I'm a screenwriter primarily. That's although now I'm intending to be primarily a novelist now that I've done this one. But I
Nice.
uh, I originally came up with this idea as a screenplay. I was because this is just how my brain thinks.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of old movies. I'm very into movies, and I kind of had the idea to, I was trying to come up with an idea for what to write next, and I sort of set a little challenge for myself and said, okay, figure out the movie that Humphrey Bogart or Robert Mitchum would be making
Mhm.
if they were alive now. You know, something with modern sensibilities, modern action in it, but that one of those two guys would be able to play the lead role in it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the idea first came from. And I had this idea about this dictator's gold cache that he needs to get out of the country. I'd been trying to figure out what to do with that for a while. And once I sort of put that, oh, hello in the background. Once I put
Oh,
that
good.
sort of parameters on it, it came, the story came very quickly to me.
Okay.
And I started to write it as a screenplay, and it just wasn't working for whatever reason. The voice that I was going for, the tone that I was going for, it just wasn't coming across. And one of my close friends, a guy named Andrew Marlowe, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he
The name's
created that
familiar.
show Castle, and he wrote Air Force One, and he's a good writer. And we have a little group that gets together at the farmers market once a week, a
Oh,
little writers and producers group. And he said to me, "You should try writing a novel." And I just thought, that's a really interesting idea, and maybe this is the one. So I sat down and just started playing with it. Before you know it, I had 84,000 words, you
oh,
know,
great. Isn't that
84,001. I'm very proud of that one.
that's great. It's nice when you have people in your corner like that who just kind of throw something out in your direction and and it sticks and it can be life-changing, it kind of pivot
Yeah.
you on a dime like that. That's really amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's for me personally, it's important to find a pivot because I'm luckily, knock wood, I've been working, ever since I first broke into this business, I've been working. I'm still working,
Yeah, good.
but it's getting harder and harder because
Mm,
this business is contracting like crazy. Everybody's merging. There's fewer buyers, and the buyers that there are not doing as many things. It's just really getting tough
mm,
here,
mm,
even for someone well established, or maybe especially for someone well established. I don't know,
yeah.
but I tried this not only as an experiment, but also to see if it would work. Because if it does, I'm gonna focus on this. And I've already
Yeah.
written the second book in the Max Starkey
Okay.
series. It's with the
Okay.
editors now, so we'll see.
Oh,
But
great.
yeah,
I was going to ask you later on in if this is the beginning of a series or not, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Uh, for folks who we obviously most people have heard of screenplays, and maybe have even seen them, seen the format and how they
right.
look and that sort of thing. What would you say for someone who has never read a screenplay? What would you say is really the big difference because that came to mind because when you were saying it didn't really work as a screenplay, and so my
Right.
first thought was like, why? What was it about the technique or something that just you could tell right away this was not a screenplay?
The biggest thing about screenplays, I mean, there's all the formatting stuff and the structure stuff and there's a lot of sort of rigid rules
Hmm.
in screenwriting that you have to
Yeah.
follow. But the main difference between them, and anybody who's written a book will sort of go, when I say this, is that a screenplay is entirely 100% external.
Mm,
All you can put down on the page is what the audience sees and what the audience hears. That's it. You can't
okay.
get into someone's inner monologue. You can't talk about why they're the way they are or what kind of upbringing they had, or you can't do
Okay.
anything except
Okay.
what you see and what you hear. That's it. Those are the
So
only
you're
tools you have.
telling the story as
Yeah.
opposed
So
to, yeah.
so all of that stuff about background and psychology and motivation and all that stuff has to come out through either action,
Hmm.
preferably, or dialogue,
Yeah.
because there's no other way to do it.
You said that you're primarily a screenwriter. Did you find over your long, successful career, did you find at times that you wanted to dig into those things but couldn't?
Yeah, but I think what winds up happening with screenwriting, if you are good at it and if you are lucky enough to do it for a living like I have, is the challenge of finding ways to get those things across without explicitly writing them out, I think, is the fun of doing it.
I
It's
see.
finding the visual
Gotcha.
ways to go, okay, when this character walks in the room, what action can he take that will sort of tell the audience who he is and what kind of person he is, or she,
Okay.
or they, I
Gotcha.
guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Well, I thought you did a great job giving us, the reader, this sense of atmosphere in this story. Like the scene with the Thai arms dealer. I thought that was great, especially with the I don't want to give anything away, but when Juliana was looking into this one particular room and she saw these two figures,
Oh
it's just
yeah, yeah.
just the whole atmosphere of it all and everything. And then you walked us through what even if I didn't know what you did before becoming a novelist, I think I would have picked up on this. It's that you had some scenes that were very, in my opinion, cinematic, and
Okay.
and there was one that was just highly amusing to me that included a Frenchman, and
Oh.
so I thought those were all really great. But I tell you what, I really, really enjoyed were your characters. Max Starkey. I can definitely see some bogey in him.
Yeah.
And they're just so richly layered, and some of them even leaned a little bit towards that anti-hero side, which was not a bad thing. It actually made it a very fascinating read. And so I was kind of curious, what techniques do you use to maybe build those fully developed characters like that?
Well, it's interesting. What I did with this one was I started with a simple premise, which is when these people get out of the CIA, because one of the things I was thinking about, and it actually plays even more in the second book, is the way there's this sort of purge going on in these three-letter agencies where people are just being fired and fired and fired and subjected to loyalty tests and all this kind of stuff. So you sort of have all these people cut loose that have these skills, and of course, in a book like this, these skills are heightened,
Yes.
and I think they have a lot more adventures than your average CIA officer, but but that was sort of where I began it. And then once you do that, then you can start thinking about, okay, what sort of person would have gone into that in the first place, and how would they have gotten in there, and what were their motivations for getting in there, and then that sort of helps you start building the character back at that point and figuring out all the things that happened to them in their lives that brought them to the point where they wanted to you know, I think I think Juliana says at one point, I wanted to help people, so it was either law enforcement or hope I get bit by a radioactive spider. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
thing. Once you start building back, and then it's just the fun of it. It's just the fun of going, okay, what blocks can I build with to turn this into a deep, interesting human being? You
Hmm.
know, I try not to have anybody that's in any of my things that's not a full-fledged human being. One of the things I always say to writing students when I talk to them, which I try to do quite a bit, is I say, before you turn this thing in, go through it from the perspective of each and every character, no matter how small, as if that character was the star of this movie,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
So that
Yeah.
so that you every scene that character is in, there's something going on for them. They have a
Hmm.
motivation. They have a whatever, an arc if you want, but maybe they're too small a character to have an arc. But at least try to see what's happening from the perspective of each character, because then that person will, even if they just got a couple of lines, they'll come out feeling more like somebody real as opposed to just somebody there to serve your story or serve your lead character, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Well,
and
speaking
in a
of,
book, you can really do that. I mean, one of the I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
no, go ahead.
You're getting me excited. One of the
No,
ch-
that's great.
one of the chapters that people always talk to me about when they right after, I swear to God, every person who reads this book says, "Oh my God, Tui," and I don't know if you remembered Tui,
I
but
do.
and here's a character that's in one chapter, never comes back.
Yes.
It's just one 2-page chapter about this character, and every single person who reads the book mentions it to me. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
and I think that's really what you're striving for, is to try to make everybody real. It would be easy to take a character like the rebel leader guy and just make him a stock, you know,
Yeah.
crazy villain, but there's no fun in that. He's not interesting that way. And
Well,
and
even
then he
Derek. I mean, Derek is not a good guy. He's
no, he's
he's
not,
he's not,
but
but
he's a
he
good
had
character.
he's a good character, but he's just a morally bad guy. But he there was a one scene where he was talking to Max and revealed something that Max didn't know about Kelly, and so he had this code that he stood by.
Right.
And I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but even so, even with somebody like that, you know, you gave him, I guess, certain things that he lives by, or you know, that sort of thing. And Max, I'm glad to hear that you're doing a series with Max because he was such a great character. Is did you have him? I mean, what part of this story? Maybe talk to us a little bit about Max and how he came to be, and you know what sparked him in your imagination, I guess.
Well, Max, I mean, I know that Max is going to be the surrogate for the reader, right? Or the audience. So he's the one you want to make the most sort of identifiable, even though when you get right down to it, he's also done some things in his time,
Yes.
you know, and
Yes.
he has
Yeah.
a code too, and his code is actually laid out very specifically, you know. I
Hmm.
have three rules that I live by. They're this, and this, and as long as I
Right.
don't break them. And and I wanted him to be sympathetic. And you know, one of the things I think that makes characters interesting is if they go through something that the rest of us might take as an excuse to break or an excuse to see the world in a jaded, angry way. And
Hmm.
they don't do that. They do the opposite of that. You know, they sort of say, okay, here's what I learned from being around all this terrible stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's suffering and everybody deserves to be treated kindly or whatever. You know, it's I mean, that's a
Hmm.
simplified version of it. But and I don't want to give away stuff in the book either, but you know, his childhood is very unique, the way
Yes,
he
it is.
grows up
Yeah.
and yet that taught him a lesson, a positive lesson about how to treat people and why people are in the circumstances that they're in, as opposed to the lesson he could have taken from that, which is a very negative one, you know. And
And at a critical point in the story, it made the other characters believe him that he didn't do
right,
something to
yeah,
this young character. You know, so
yeah.
yeah, you tied it all together, which was really pretty incredible. It's great. It's
And
great.
that character that you just mentioned is one of my favorites too. That whole
Yeah.
story with her in the jungle and
Yeah,
the
she's
I
great.
love and you know that's the difference between a screenplay and a book as well, is that storyline would have never happened in a screenplay
Right.
because there's not enough real estate and it's off of the spine of the story. It's its own little thing going along parallel. It winds up, you know, being intricately involved with everything at the end, but it's its own thing. And it wasn't even
Hmm.
planned. It's just something that sort of spontaneously happened when I was writing, you know.
I love
And
those little gems.
yeah, and now it's one of my absolute favorite parts of the book, you know.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. Well, what attracted you to setting this story in that part of the world, Southeast Asia?
Well, there were a few things. One is that I'm familiar with it. I've traveled down there quite a bit. Um, and, you know, the sort of story, it had to be somewhere where there could be sort of a third world dictator guy. Then, you know, I thought of South America, I thought of Eastern Europe, I thought of all that, but I thought the jungle is so much more interesting.
Yeah,
And having to move this cargo through the jungle is such a fascinating challenge, you
yeah,
know, that's really
yeah.
why I did it.
Okay.
And but part of it was just my familiarity with the region because I
Yeah.
figured I can write this because I know what it looks like, I know what it smells like, I know what that heavy wet air feels like, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, for sure. Did it present any problems to you, I guess professionally, as far as, you know, trying to sell the story, or that was not an issue at all? Because there's
it
some
didn't seem
places in the
to.
world that tend to be a little bit off-putting, let's say, to some
Well, I
agents and
didn't really
editors
get,
and
I
things.
mean, for one thing, even though I set it in Southeast Asia, I made the conscious decision to set it in a fictional country.
Mm,
You know, this country that it takes place in is this little tiny country that's sort of in between Thailand and Laos and
yeah,
Myanmar, and you know, it's but but we don't, you know, who knows. And part of the reason I did that was because there's so much, like I thought about each country in the region, and there were reasons why, like specific reasons why I didn't want to set it in any of the real
gotcha.
places. You know, Thailand, they have their monarchy, which they revere.
Mm-hmm.
And so to say, oh, well, they don't exist, it's this dictator. That would have been offensive to them, I think. That,
Yeah.
Laos has got this whole crazy communist government thing going on, and Myanmar at the time that I was writing it, and still, it's just a
Yeah.
you know what show over there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're having ethnic cleansing, and I didn't want to trivialize that by
Mm-hmm.
using it as a storytelling
Device.
device,
Yeah.
unless I
Yeah.
was going to be doing a much more serious book that sort of had that as a reason for the book.
Right.
So I just decided in the end, I'll just make up a country and we'll put it there. But I think it feels very much like
Oh
all
yeah.
those places,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's great. Well, on
Um,
this show, we like to talk about story stakes. I always joke, love, death, the fate of the realm. They're all high stakes in a story. But what I'd like to hear is your thoughts on what's personally at stake for Max in this book.
yeah, and I think that's a big um, I think that's the main thing about the book is that when you get right down to it, it's a love triangle, and it's this story about how he was betrayed by these two people,
Hmm.
and you learn a lot of this very early in the book, so I'm not really
Yeah.
giving away too much, but you know that Kelly used to be his lover. You know that he knows that Derek did something really awful back then, and now they're
Yeah.
together. And
Right.
that was sort of my noir setup. Like I was looking for a real noirish setup, and this whole idea of I'm out, and now my ex and my old enemy, who are now married to each other, pull me back in.
Yeah.
Is a very
Yeah.
noirish kind of
Yeah. No, it's great.
thing. But I think for him, it's all about, and I think his agenda changes a little bit too as the show goes on there. But his his initial reason for doing it is to get revenge against Derek for what happened back then. It's not necessarily about the woman, but once he gets there and the woman is in his life again, that sort of becomes also part of the motivation, which you also
Hmm.
learn in backstory. So I think the stakes for him, even though like ostensibly it's about getting this gold and everyone's trying to cheat everybody else out of this gold and blah
Yeah.
blah. It's not really about the gold. It's about the personal stakes
Right.
between the three humans. You know.
And I liked how it's really a dual timeline, right? So you teased that history with the three of them. You teased that along and pulled it out very slowly, which I really loved. It added to
Oh,
the
good.
tension because it's like, okay, what exactly happened between these three, So I thought that was really really great.
Good. I'm glad.
All right, well, to change gears just a little bit here, some fun questions, hopefully. What is one thing readers might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh my gosh. What might learner readers be surprised to learn about me? Um, that's a really hard question. I don't think
It
I'm a very surprising person. I think I'm pretty,
it can be as
gosh.
little as, you like Chinese or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything big and humorous or anything. So
Yeah,
it's something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm covered with tattoos, head to
Okay.
toe. How about that?
All right,
I mean,
perfect.
literally from here down.
Okay.
Look
All
like this
right.
all the way down. How's
All
that?
right.
Is that a good one?
Perfect. I like it. I like it. That's great. That's great. All right. Well, besides reading, what is your favorite thing to do when you're not writing, directing, or producing?
Well, I think this is a kind of a boring answer, but I think watching movies,
Yeah.
old movies
Yeah.
especially, I'm sort of hooked on TCM. I watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I just love
That's
all
great.
kinds of movies, but I'm also a severely sick Lakers fan. I've had season tickets. This is my 30th season
Wow.
of season
Wow.
tickets, so I'm big on that.
I did
Um,
like how you inserted the Monty Python towards the
yeah,
end. That was great.
that's kind of
All
funny.
right.
She's
All
a
right.
great
Well,
character too. I love her. She's
yeah,
in the
she
book
is
too as
good.
well. So
Yeah. Yeah, they're all, like I said, they're all great characters. They're just very well constructed characters. Awesome. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next? You already mentioned that you finished book number two. Do you know when we might see that, or are you working on something else that you'd like to talk about? Just
I do
whatever.
not know. I do not know when we might see that. I when they bought 1,000 cuts, because I wrote it on spec. I didn't pitch it. I just wrote it, sent it
Nice.
out. When they bought it, they contracted me for two with the
Okay.
same character. So it was. I knew all along this was going to continue at least to a second book. So I'm just waiting to hear what the editors think of it now.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
But
that
I
waiting
also,
game. The
I
worst
have a
part,
few.
right?
Yeah,
The worst
I
part.
have three or four movies in the hopper that I'm trying to get off the ground, and
Okay.
um, I just finished a script for this movie called Greco, which is a true story about a college football player whose family is sort of mobbed up, and he gets pressured to throw games and stuff. It's a
Oh,
pretty
wow.
pretty
Yeah.
cool story. It's a true
Okay.
story too.
Wow. Wow.
So and a couple other things, but
All right. Fun stuff. All right.
that's the thing about screenwriting is you always have to have 10 things that in the hopes that one of them will catch, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like the process of bringing a film or show or what have you, to the screen, authors think it takes a long time. As for traditionally published authors, think it's a long time, 18 months to 24 months before from the time they write it to the time it shows up on the shelves. But I think it's even worse for
Oh,
Hollywood,
it's
your
way
world,
worse.
right? Yeah.
It can take 10 years, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I really liked about writing the book was that I'm able to speak directly to my reader. Whereas I got a script and I hand it over, and then it's got to go through actors and directors and
Mm,
editors and all these other people before the audience has access to it. Whereas with the book, it's here's my book, you like it or you don't, but here it is,
yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's really hard to get anything made. My sort of standard joke is that when my wife and I are in the theater and the lights go down and the studio logo comes up on the screen, I lean over to her and I say, honey, this movie might actually happen. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. All right. Well, folks, be sure to order your copy of A Thousand Cuts today. Greg, where can folks go to find you if they want to learn more about you? Is there a place
I
on
have
the?
gregorypoirier.com, which has a
Okay.
little bit. Of course, I also have an IMDb page if they're
Okay.
interested in my movie stuff. But that's the place, and the book is everywhere you would think it would be. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Good Reads and all that stuff.
Okay. All right.
So
Good deal.
yeah,
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. As you can tell, I love this book, and I really appreciate you stopping by to
thank
chat
you,
with me about it.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You bet. That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.